Hi everyone, sorry for the delay, and there was a small issue with my laptop. Hopefully now it should be okay. So team, can you confirm that everything is okay? All right. So anyway, I have a very short presentation, so I'm sure that it will not take much of your time, but this will be a very unique subject that very few people have spoken about. So I'm sure that even if there is a delay, this is worth the discussion. So let me get a confirmation from my team that everything is okay. Then we will immediately start. Okay. So the topic that we have taken today is right agencies for digital success. Generally, what happens is you have digital is a very broad area where people expect everything from digital agencies, and how we can map up the right expectation from digital agencies, and what do we mean by digital agencies. So what we need to understand is that this digital as a unit, digital as a industry is not very old. It is still in the very early stage, and because of that there are a lot of expectation mismatches, and the industry standards are not very well defined. And this is what is a reason that at the client level, at the agency level, we do not know what is the right definition for a contract, or what is the right definition for entering into a relationship. And sometimes you may get cheated by somebody at an agency level or somebody at a client level, and this happens. And there are other reasons behind it. The other reasons is, like, if you look at a traditional agency, traditional agencies were generally it requires a lot more investment, and those agencies were much more credible. And today the label digital marketing agency or digital agencies can be taken by anyone with a laptop, and they might just come with the logo and say that, oh, we are so and so company and working with so and so people, and they can quote you any amount of money. And in that way there is a huge trust issue in the industry as a whole. But let me take it through so that at least you have the pointers when you're discussing it with your team. At least at your level, you should not become a problem either at an agency level or at a client level. So today's presentation will help you understand various points about it. Okay, so that's what and why I have put this 4 as a criteria for discussion is, generally there are 4 top pillars that you should get it right, and there are plenty of other pillars that you should get it right, but these core pillars are around these 4 areas that I will be discussing today. And so these are common discussions that happens, that generally a client will, or a business will come to an agency, offline agency, and saying that how good are you at digital. And to the digital agency they will ask that how can you help us with some print ads too. So generally offline agency is being checked for digital capabilities, and a digital agency is being looked for an offline capabilities. And this happens, and there's nothing right and wrong. So I'm not saying this is wrong or this should not be done, but these are common conversations that happens in today's world. And to creative agency, someone will say that, oh, you're a very creative agency, but can you make app as well? And a no in certain cases with certain type of businesses means that no contract. And at times, because agencies will like to get into that particular account, agencies will say yes, and then they will struggle for wrong reasons, whereas their capability is into certain things, and they've been pushed into something else, and you end up into a kind of a bad relationship with that particular client. And even at our company, we say that let's build on our strength at individual people level, that rather than looking at the weaknesses. Similarly, when you're working with an agency or working with an individual, even at a team level, you should be building on their strength rather than looking at their weaknesses. Okay, so let's look at, so what is our true role as an agency, as a consultant, as someone who's responsible for digital success? What is our true role? Should we be working at a reach level? Should we be working at a channel level? Should we be working at a communication level? What is it? And this is asked by everyone, and almost everyone is doing everything just to cater to, and there is also a reason that why everyone wants to do everything, because the costing structure does not allow you to work with so many agencies as well. Okay, so let me take this up one by one. So what is the role in total is, basically there is a customer funnel from awareness to consideration to convert to repeat and to the level of referrals and etc. So you need to reach out to people, you need to connect with people, you need to do messaging, you need to come up with right type of creatives, etc. Then you need to help them with consideration, and help them with convert. So in the whole funnel, there are multiple players who are coming into the picture, and this is what we will be taking it up. And I'll revisit this particular funnel. Let's look at it. Okay. Uh, there are multiple things beyond this, but I have put in at least this areas for us to have a discussion. Okay, let me just make it small. Okay, so if you see at the top level, there is a business understanding, and this is, it can be that the business owners or business stakeholders have a very good business understanding. Sometimes they take the risk, but the full business understanding is not even with them, and they will also be relying on some consultants to come and give them some ideas to look at the business in a better way. So that is what they will do. But at the top level is, how do you want to run the business? Okay, and this is science, data, and as much as this is also an art, there will be people who will take up decisions against the data and go into that particular route, and that is a pure entrepreneurial skill set to do that. But there is a business level understanding that is required. And then you have research companies and business consulting companies like McKinsey's of the world, who will come into the picture and who will say that, let me help you in, if you look at the left hand side of the research and business understanding, you have target group understanding or customer understanding, you have market understanding, you have competitor understanding, then you have pricing, product, place, etc. Those kind of things needs to be fixed. Whether you're going to charge an X amount of dollar for a particular product, or you're going to charge 2X of that. Everything is a decision. Okay, and if that decisions are made incorrectly, then correcting that also might give you a lot of challenge. So that is why these business research companies are supposed to be good at that. Their expertise is coming up with this kind of data. When we work with large clients, there is a very strong business consulting division which works with them, and they do the market research. They try to understand, why do you buy this product, how often do you buy this product, who makes the decision for this product, and what are the major decision making factors, what price range will you like to buy this product. So all of this research data into multiple target group, multiple geographies, you do all the research, and that data comes back to rest of the marketing teams, and we all sit together, we all brainstorm, and we say that, okay, this is what we can use this data for our communication level or for our advertisement level. Someone will look at for pricing level, someone will look at for communication level. So that's one unit that is required, whether this is an agency which is an external agency, or this is a research which is done within the company by somebody in the company, but that unit is required. And then you have a communication unit. So the job of the communication unit is to come up with the brand positioning. Like, if someone remembers you and someone imagines you, and what is the picture of your brand which will come in their mind? So what picture do you want to create tomorrow? What is the picture that is coming today, and how do we want to change it? How do we want to change it? So that's basically brand positioning. And also, when you want to create this positioning, when you want to create brand in long run, so what are the guidelines that you should follow, so that there is a color association, there is a imagery association, there is a logo association, there is a mascot association, there is a font association, there is a creative association, there is a copy association. There can be multiple levels the way you want people to remember you. So what are the brand guidelines that you want to put in place, so that every communication that goes from the company or from the brand is considered one, is coming, people should understand that this is coming from the same factory. So that's what the guidelines means. And also, whenever there is a mass impact, whether it's a TV advertisement or a print advertisement, etc., the communication company comes into the picture and says that, since it is going to masses, we will like to get the control of it, because that has the biggest impact from a communication agency. When you want to give it for a BTL or a small activity that you want to do, or a small digital campaign, etc., the reach is relatively less compared to that of a TV advertisement or a print advertisement. So at that level, the core communication team may not get engaged, but they will always maintain the hygiene and the guidelines towards it. Then you have some agencies which will do activities for you on the ground, which is, we call it below the line activities, like say some shows, events, etc., those kind of things, which will have an impact on sales as well, which will also get people to engage with you by asking further questions about consideration. Then you have a sales team. When all these activities are coming together and there are some leads generated, etc., sometimes the marketing work ends at a certain level and then it is passed to the sales team. And nowadays the marketing and the sales teams are also coming together at various levels. So there is a they are the last point contact for the new customers. Then you have a digital team, which is what we will be discussing tomorrow today. So that is also known as TTL. A lot of people say that this is through the line, but I'm not entering into those kind of a definition for today's sake. Then you have a tech company, which is required for doing all your tech related work. Previously, tech used to be a supportive division, but now tech is a very core division in the marketing. And that is why internationally across the globe, if you look at it, previously there was a technological division and there was a marketing division, and now both these divisions are used more often together. And this is being said that the marketing division is using more technology than the IT division in itself. So that is why many companies have also a designation called CMTs, Chief Marketing Technologies. The job of the Chief Marketing Technology and their division is how do we combine the technology team and the marketing team together to achieve better digital success. So that's basically a lot of tech related work like mobile app, websites, CRMs, ERPs, APIs, connections, and multiple level of things that are required at the tech level that is required. Then you have a customer support, that if people have multiple queries, even at the social media level, at times people come and people ask you multiple questions. Now there is always a problem that if I work with clients where you get 10,000, 15,000 queries on a weekly basis. Now there were confusions that whether this falls under digital marketing activity or this falls under digital marketing management activity. Does client management comes into digital marketing, or the client management comes into the customer management? And it all depends on the way you have done the contract. And we had those kind of gray areas in certain contracts where we had to discuss, debate, and then come to an understanding. So that's basically a customer support. And apart from this, there may be other divisions which are helping you with smaller activities. And I did not go deeper into digital as well. You might have SEO team separate from a PPC team, and it can have a different social media team. So you can have, and there were examples where large companies like UNESCO's and others, they've been using 120, 130 agencies together to make all their work happen. And then you have some printing companies and who will do the print part of it, someone who will design your print activities. There can be multiple levels. Now, is that good, is that bad, is being debated. Like a lot of agencies, with a lot of companies which used to have 80, 100 companies are cutting down to 5 or 6 companies. A lot of companies which had 8, 9 agencies is cutting down to 3, 4, 5 agencies. Okay, and so the reason is also to cut down the cost and cut down a lot of communication wastage between the companies, and everyone is looking at an integrated approach. I hope these divisions are very clear. So you have a business understanding layer, you have a communication layer, you have a research layer, or the research and the business understanding can be clubbed together in certain way. Then you have a digital layer, and then you have a technological layer, just for this top 4 pillars that I talked about. Then you have a lot of other supporting layers like customer support, sales, and BTL, etc. Multiple supporting level that comes into the picture. Now if I go further into it, okay, so what is the role of digital in all of that? Should we, so if you look at the definition of marketing, it is marketing means meeting needs profitably, and marketing through digital markets is what we call it as digital marketing. And digital markets are divided into search, profile, context, and marketplaces, where every single of this market has a different behavior altogether. So how do we do marketing, and just not the promotion but altogether the marketing using this different market is what marketing is all about. And using different TGs from B2C, B2B, influencers, resellers, and using different media like paid, owned, earned medias, which we call it as POEM. So the role of digital is no different from the role of any other media that you have. But let me go further into it so that we get a clarity on it. Now the question is, who will do in all of these activities? If you have hired a digital marketing agency, who will do digital research, or who will do business research and consulting? Will the same digital marketing agency be able to do it? And when I say agency, it can be an internal agency or an external agency. Internal agency will be someone who is hired by you and you build in a team. So I'm also referring them as a digital agency. Will the digital agency will be capable of doing the business research and consulting? Now, if you look at a SME or a local business or a micro business, generally the business owner is surrounded by the data, and they have a gut feeling that this is how my business runs, this is how my industry runs. So you don't do a market research or you don't do a business research, you go with the understanding of the business owner, because every time you want to do a market research, it comes at a very high expense. And at digital level, you might just want to do some surveys, etc., to enhance the knowledge that you have, or do some digital audit to get extra knowledge about it. But generally you don't do this kind of a research for smaller companies. But when it comes to bigger companies, these research is very much effective. The reason is you're going to pump in $1 million into advertisement. It is okay to spend a 5-10% of that to get the communication, the route very right, by understanding the people, okay, or understanding the behavior of the customer. That certainly helps. So who will do the business research and consulting is a question that the digital agency or the digital team should ask. Is it our responsibility as an agency, or is it are we going to get some support from somebody? If you are going to get some support from someone, absolutely fine. You should just take that data and use that data for your activity. Then comes in who will come up with brand positioning and messaging, and why it matters. Okay, so first of all, why it matters is everything that you do, the brand positioning and the brand guidelines is the glue that collects or connects everything together. So it is very important for you to have the brand positioning right, and the brand messaging right, and the brand guidelines right. I'm a strong advocate of getting the hygiene right for brand. If you are a small business, micro business, you do not want to invest money to become a brand, but you always want to make sure your brand hygiene for branding is being taken care of. Okay, so this brand positioning and guideline is very, very important. Now, when you are hiring a SEO agency or a PPC agency or digital agencies, are they really good at understanding brand positioning, or all the messaging around the brand guidelines and etc.? Can they select a font proper? Can they select a, like a copy proper, etc.? Is that their skill set? Now this is a big gray area. So most of the creative agencies, whether it's an Ogilvy, JWT, etc., all these top level companies, they also have a digital wing. They extend their capabilities to others, and then there are independent digital agencies which has developed their capabilities to go into the brand positioning and brand messaging level. And there are agencies which has come from a traditional background where they understand this. Now, if you know that your digital agency is capable of doing it, think about the amount of money that you will be investing on it. Does it make sense for you to involve a communication agency? And if there is a communication agency, they're supposed to be experts in that particular area, and they will do more research, they will come up with more understanding, they'll come up with more work around it. And this is something that they've done for many, many years. So they will be in a much better position to do your brand positioning and brand guideline. And then you have the digital reach, which is less of an issue, because everybody knows that a digital agency should do all the reach related activity, whether it's a PPC, SEO, social media, emails, etc., etc. Sometimes if there is one or two activity which is very core to you, and you want to involve a very specialized agency to do that, like in certain cases when we do marketing, digital marketing for some agencies, also for some clients, and at that particular time there is a strong need of app marketing, and at that particular time we feel that okay, there's an app marketing company in US which is specialized in this particular industry, let us involve them. So we involve them as a consultant level, or we involve them as an execution partner, and we work with them for 6 months, 1 year time, and by then we understand whether they can add some extra value to the overall value proposition. If they can, they stay with us. If they can't, at least they add some value to it. So that is how the channel level specialization can be used. But if all channels are equally used, then you need a very generalized digital agency which will manage everything together. And then when it comes to assets like website, mobile app, and etc., who is going to conceptualize it? So generally the conceptualization can happen from the digital agency itself, who is supposed to conceptualize it in association with the execution partner who will do the execution. Sometimes the digital agencies are supported by a great technological division, sometimes they are not, and there is nothing right and wrong about it. If you're good at your work, probably there can be a digital development company which can come into the picture, and both the companies can work together and create that better digital success. Now in that, there is a conceptualization, there is a user experience, and user experience and communication can be handled by the digital agency as well as the communication agency, they can all work together in the user journey where the information architecture, the mock-ups and the wireframes, etc., can be discussed and everything. And then when it comes to the UI, the aesthetic part of it, that again the communication agency can't come into the picture and saying that I want my communication to be consistent, so I will like to have a say in how you're going to design the website. So UI can still be a contribution between digital agency, the communication agency, and the technical execution partner. But when it comes to the technology part of it, you might want to leave it to the execution company, which is into the technological layer. So now you understand that there are different agencies contributing different things, and digital agency is just a tag on top of most of these people, and we don't know what each agency is supposed to do. Okay, now what are the challenges that we get into this? Okay, so the challenges that we get in when you have multiple agencies, so multiple agencies will have to explain or needs to be explained about the business. So every time as a business owner, every time as a business, you will have to go and explain 5 agencies about your business, and everyone understands your business from their perspective. Or some people understand that, okay, this is a good company for Facebook. Somebody will say that, oh, I will like to do communication like this because this will become the next XYZ of the world. And somebody will say that, oh, this does not have that kind of a capability, so let's go very very soft in our communication. So in that way, when multiple agencies are involved, they will see the same business in multiple ways, and getting 5 agencies together with the same mindset is not an easy task. So this is one big challenge, and every time you explain it to agency about the business understanding, it is a time-taking stuff. This is a costly affair. So how often do you want to explain it to them? So that's something that, and plus in today's world, your business understanding, the requirement that you have is much faster compared to that of the past. So you want to be very sure that your communication channel between you and your agency is much more agile in nature rather than very rigid that, okay, we will do once in a year kind of a briefing for this agency. So you have 10 agency, your cost becomes 10x. If you have 2 agency, your cost becomes 2x. So that's the kind of cost that is there. So that's one challenge that you have when you're working with multiple agencies. And as I said, working with multiple agency has its own advantages. These are some of the disadvantages that I'm highlighting. And also when you have multiple agencies, who is responsible to get it? So generally what we have seen is when there are 4 or 5 agencies sitting together, there's nobody who takes up the responsibility. Someone will say that I did the communication really well, but the digital agency which is supposed to create the reach did not create the reach. That is why this campaign did not work. And somebody will say that, or the digital agency will come back and say that, oh, I did the job very nicely. See, my impressions are very good, but when I came to the website was not performing good enough. That is why my conversion did not happen. And or the digital agency will say that your communication, your brand positioning, etc., is not good enough, that even if when I'm reaching to people, those things are not converting into a brand recall, or there is no offline sales which is happening because of that. So there will be a lot of blame game. You don't know who is the authority in all of this agency level. So that is another challenge that you will face. So, and also these are some of the pointers that you should always remember, that you are in 2019, you are not in 2016 or 2017, when digital as a platform was considered as a silo and being talked about separately. So you used to talk about digital as a different agency and the marketing as a different agency and others. Today everything needs to be integrated, and digital is a mainstream, and it is almost 17.5% in Indian context, and it is close to, I think, the highest in the US and UK and everywhere, which is closer to the TV spend in itself. If you look at SMEs, probably the digital spend is much more than all the other platforms combined together. So digital cannot be looked at as a silo. If you are still looking at digital team or digital agency in a silo and not integrating them with the rest of the activities, then probably you are bound to get into a failure level, or this is not the most optimized activity to do. And also the KPIs are essential to give direction. So how are you going to distribute your KPIs across multiple agencies? That also needs to be there. Without KPIs, it is very, very difficult for you to manage agencies or people when you're working with them. This is a very good statement by the Stephen of L'Oreal CMO. I always smile when agencies claim that they're doing digital. Honestly, maybe that was good in 2010, but in 2017, they should claim they just do marketing. We need to stop talking about digital. It's all part of marketing, and there cannot be a better statement than what he has said. So we quote this quite often. So let's look at it. How should your team structure look like? And the first thing that you need to do is, who is in charge of all these agencies? Who is accountable for core business KPIs? So what are these core business KPI? Core business KPIs: how do I increase my top line and bottom line using digital markets? How do I, like, reach or build a brand health score? How do I do certain activities because of which my overall repeat purchases can increase, which again impacts my top line, bottom line, kind of a thing? So who is going to take this accountability, that I don't care about how many agencies are working with us, but I will take up the responsibility and I am the sole accountable person? Whereas, if I am the accountable person, then I also need the authority. So generally what we have seen is this accountability is taken by an internal team which coordinates with all the agencies when it comes to a relatively mid-level companies or a larger level companies. So there will be an internal team which manages all the agencies. So what we need to understand is, if you have an internal team should take up the accountability. They should not blame other agencies or the other team members which are working with them, but they should say that I am sole responsible for achieving these numbers. I am sole accountable to reach this number, irrespective of whether my agency is working with me or not. Like Steve Jobs have very nicely put in that if a janitor comes to my office and the janitor can't clean my office, and the janitor has all the authority or all the reasons to put forward saying that I did not have the keys, so I was not able to clean it. So reasons matter at a janitor level. The time you become a vice president of the company, etc., the reasons stop mattering. So somewhere between the janitor and the vice president, the reasons stop mattering. So what you also need to look at it, the agency or the team which is managing the core KPIs can't have any kind of an excuse. They are solely responsible for it. Okay, so when you're solely responsible for it, when you're solely accountable for it, then you also need the authority. So these are the people who should be very comfortable in selecting the agencies. They should be the people who will select the rest of the team members. If you are asked to manage an agency group of agencies, but you do not have the authority to make a decision, you do not have the authority to replace them, somewhere that equation is that you have the accountability but you do not have the authority, which is a wrong principle of managing it. So that's one where if you have an internal team which manages it, then that's well and good. In case if you're a very mid-level company or a small level company where you do not have a very mature internal team, and again let me also be very clear that when you're giving accountability to any of these agencies, it can be a communication agency being the accountable company, or it can be a digital agency which is the accountable company. It can be any agency out of this who can be accountable. Even it can be a technical company which can be accountable. Generally the way we have seen in the industry is that the company which enters in first in the whole equation becomes the accountable company. They bring rest of the people together. Okay, so whichever is the company which is accountable, just make sure that they're mature. If they're not mature, whether it's your internal agency, whether it is your digital agency or the communication agency, if they do not know how to work with multiple people, if they do not respect other people, if they do not understand business maturity, if they do not understand communication maturity, if they do not understand digital maturity, so somewhere or the other they will struggle in managing all of these people. Either people will fool them or they will not be able to retain the best of the talent within this particular pool. So maturity is one big thing. So if you are having internal team also, if they're not mature enough, so please hire other consultants to manage it. But if they are not mature enough, don't give it to their hand. If you're having a digital agency who is supposed to be responsible for it, but if they are not mature, don't leave your business in their hand. So you should take the control, whoever is mature. And that is why in certain cases business owners comes and take up the authority, and they take up the responsibility and they work with the team. Okay, so that's one, is whichever company is more mature, that's one thing that you should look at it. Second is whichever company is doing the maximum amount of work, wherever you are spending the maximum amount of budget, should be given the accountability as well as the authority. So if you have say $1 million to spend, and out of the $1 million, $500,000 is going into the communication agency, then the communication agency should be given the accountability as well as the authority to select rest of the agencies, maybe in collaboration with the team in itself. Okay, but if the authority wants to be taken at the business level, the client can have the authority as well as the accountability. But it can't happen that the client has the authority and the accountability is with the creative agency, or the authorities or the accountability is with the digital agency. So that is not the right principle that you should look at it. So get the out of the team, get the team which has the maximum work, maximum budget allocated to them as the accountable as well as the authoritative team. And along with this, also look at the maturity. In case if one or two teams are not mature but they are doing a lot of work, give it to a team which is more mature so that they can manage it. So that's what I will say, that one team which is responsible is very, very important. They should be accountable and they should have the authority to take the actions accordingly. Okay, hope this makes it clear. And the second is, there are two type of agencies or teams that will be involved. So one is, say if I am giving the authority and the accountability to my internal team to manage it, so they have the business KPIs to be managed. Then you have a digital agency, you have a communication agency, you have multiple other agencies. So is the communication agency involved at a support level, or is the communication agency is going to be a KPI level partner to you? If they're a KPI level partner, that means your win is their win, your lose is their lose. Are they going to put some skin into the game? If they're not going to put some skin into the game, so you are using them as a support, but they do not have any specific motivation to make you successful. And that is where comes into the picture when it if they share the KPIs. Okay, so if they have a KPI, you should define very well what is the KPI that you should be achieving. If the KPI is not achieved, they should be penalized. If the KPI is achieved or surpassed, then you should be rewarding them as well. So that is what you should look at. So there are two teams when I work with multiple agencies. So even when I am an agency, there are other agencies that I hire. When I hire those agencies, I know why I'm hiring them. I don't hire them to take the accountability of my KPIs. I still hold the KPIs. I am still the sole responsible person for the KPIs. I am using them for their skills. So they become my supporting team, not the team which is going to take care of my KPIs. So divide your KPIs across the agencies which is sharing the KPIs, and then some agencies can come into as a support. And whichever agency is managed at a support level, just make sure that they have a quality of the work that you expect them to do. They should do the timely deliverable, and the cost should be under your budgeted cost that you have. And the companies which are into KPI level, you should have the business KPI and ROI being shared with them. So if you have an X KPI that you want to achieve, maybe they are sharing 1/4 of the KPI, so they can achieve that. And put the skin in the game. If there is no skin in the game, it is not the best practice to get the best out of them. Okay, there should be a risk as well as there should be a reward for it, and they should be solely responsible for building the strategy around their KPIs. They should be building a execution plan for the ROI that they want to achieve. So that is how you can divide the agencies into two particular parts. And now this is a statement that you should remember when you are hiring agencies, is don't hire a dog then bark yourself. This is not said by me, this is said by the father of advertisement, David Ogilvy himself, where when you hire an agency, when you hire team members, then you tell them what to do. When it becomes successful, you take the credit, or you share the credit saying that, oh, this was my idea and it became successful. When it becomes a failure, as people say that failure has no fathers, and that is the time when the person who was guiding them at the business level or somewhere, then they say that, oh, this is the fault of that particular digital agency because they did not do the job well. And even at the digital agencies, you should be very clear that when there is a failure, the responsibility will come to you. So make sure that you're taking up the responsibility and doing it, rather than leaving on somebody else to come and say that, okay, they said it and that's why we are doing it. So these are the do's and don'ts. So for sure, don't leave everything to the agency, because for agency you may be just one more client, and for you, your business is everything. That is what we tell in our company, that it is okay to lose a client, but it is not okay if a client lose their business, because for us it may be one more client, but for them this is everything. So help them with KPIs, and also sometimes you want to do a bit of a hand holding, sometimes you want to give them a little more liberty, you want to give them freedom, but make sure that you're reviewing on a regular basis. Anywhere if you feel that they are not up to the mark, they are not going in the right direction, or they do not have the skills, replace them immediately. Okay, and then get somebody else who can do that. And if you know that they have the skill set to do it, so work with them and help them in getting all their resources together, and research on win-win contracts, that how to build a win-win contract, because in win-win contract you are giving them some accountability, but you are also giving them some reward in terms of resources, etc., and everything that is required to make them successful. And don't do is basically don't build a strategy for them. If you have hired them to build the strategy, let them come up with the strategy. You become the critical thinker in that, you become the devil's advocate in that, you cross question them, but don't make a strategy for them. So sometimes what happens is we are hired as a digital agency, and the client says that I want to do SEO for these particular 4 keywords, and I want to run advertisement for these particular 4 keywords, and I want to do 4 posts in the social media, I want to do all of those things. So I tell them that if you've already done everything, then what is it that you want from us? Do you want us to be an execution partner? So then we will be an execution partner, but don't blame later on us that we were responsible for making you a successful a digital success. You need to put that into a mail so that every authority in that whole chain is aware that the strategy is given by this person, and this person is responsible for the result. Okay, not someone who is at the execution level. So those things needs to be made sure, and how to do it, don't tell them. Okay, so sometimes I've also seen that certain people go to an SEO guy or a PPC guy or a social media guy saying, I want you to do like this, and when it fails, they don't take up the responsibility. So don't tell them, as David Ogilvy very nicely put it, don't hire a dog then bark yourself. That's not something that you want to do. But if you're hiring a agency at a support level, first is you check their skill set. That is your responsibility, if they're good at the skill set or not. But again, don't tell them how to do it. Okay, so I've just put few pointers around it. Hopefully this clarifies a lot about how it is not justified for you to expect everything from one agency. But when you are a small company, there are agencies which will try to do everything. But wherever you feel that one agency is not capable of some of these elements, you talk to them and you try to get another agency who will actually support it. Maybe your core agency remains the same, but rest of the supporting agencies can guide them, or give them the support that is required. Or some of the things are not very critical, like if you're a very local business and you're doing a direct messaging, you don't need a communication agencies to do it. And I've also seen this kind of a mistake, that you have a communication agency at the top level, then at the digital agency level also they hire another communication agencies which is just going to come up with more communication. So a digital agency should extend the communication of the core communication agency if there is already a communication agency there. So these elements has to come together, and don't try to put everything and try to prove an agency wrong or try to prove a client wrong, and end of the day the loss is both the parties loss. It should be a win-win for both the parties. And I think now, since I have taken a bit of a time, rest of the time we can spend some on Q&As. If you have some queries, happy to answer those queries and take the conversation forward. All right, waiting for your queries. Okay. Okay, so I have the following questions already. Okay, so the first question that I have is how do I distribute the budget between different agencies? Is there a way that I can reduce my cost? See, that again depends on, the first thing is you should have a total allocation of the budget, that okay, I am going to spend 100 on total of everything combined, and then in order to achieve this KPI, this is what I require, these companies I require, and this is my core company, so I'll give the total budget to the core company, and rest everything can be decided by the core company, saying that how do you want to spend it and how you can achieve the KPIs. And there is no golden rule that I can look at it, which is that okay, divide this into 50 40 30 kind of a ratio, but I will say that go with like a 70 30 70 20 10 kind of ratio. 70 should be spent on the core KPIs, 30 or 20 should be spent on the secondary agency, and 10 should be spent on the supporting agency. Okay, so that's how you can divide it. But again, there's no golden rule to it, so that's what I can tell. So let me see if there are other questions that I need to answer. Okay, so there are some questions which has come into other areas as well. All right. Okay, so again, the other question that is there is, it looks too complicated still. I I think I need to understand it better. Okay, so in order to help you further, what we will do is we'll try to create a kind of a document with more imagery and more, like flow charts and etc., so that you can understand this complex structure in by taking more time, and so that you can get a better idea about how the things works. Okay, and so I think since the questions are less, so I will not take much more time on this. Hopefully this session was helpful for you. You've got some more pointers about how to look at different elements of digital from one agency or multiple agencies. That is what the whole idea was. And if you have further questions, please shoot the questions to my team. They will bring the question, and then probably I'll be able to answer it further. And that's it from my end. Thank you so much for attending this webinar, and have a good digital success, and happy to help anywhere where I can be of help. Thank you so much. Bye bye, everyone.